Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent Nintendo / gaming video for this week, for the week of November 22nd to November 28th. And of course, happy Thanksgiving. I hope all of you had a happy and safe Thanksgiving, and I hope you were able to have Thanksgiving this year, even though we are facing, tough times, especially with the whole COVID-19 kind of situations. And hopefully you guys were lucky on Black Friday, although this video is being aired on Friday and will be put up on Saturday though. For those who are lucky to find either an Xbox Series S or X or PS5 in any way, I tried to, and well, unfortunately I couldn't find a PS5 though. It's a little bit of a disappointment and all that stuff, but it is what it is. But I didn't go home empty-handed for Black Friday. I was able to pick up some stuff such as this, another Seagate 1 terabyte hard drive for my Xbox Series S, and of course I was able to pick up something like this for use for the Microsoft Store possibly, and of course this. I never tried Game Pass. That's something I might take a look at, to be exact. So in other words, I was able to pick up something on Black Friday, even though my original intention was to pick up the PlayStation 5. But I won't give up trying to pick up one. It's obviously going to take much longer given the current situation we are facing right now with both the PS5. Although luckily I have an Xbox Series S, so I'm happy with what I have on that one. But anyway, we got 5 stories to cover for this week's My 2 Cent video, including reports that Watch Dogs Legions is running into some trouble lately, not to mention Assassin's Creed Valhalla may have some issues, which does make you kind of wonder, was it right for Ubisoft to release the game in the current state that it was in? We also have a surprise announcement from Square Enix, which is basically an actual sequel to The World Ends With You, which is certainly nice to see that we're actually getting a real sequel. And it's not only coming to the PS4, but it's actually coming to the Nintendo Switch as well. We also have reports on basically both Nintendo and Nvidia's partnership seems to be still going strong, and Nvidia is certainly happy given how well they are doing thanks to the success the Switch has been doing lately. We also have sort of a campaign pushed in terms of Save Smash, and this has to do with in response to Nintendo doing something that not every Smash fan seems to be pretty, not every Smash fan is happy with, and rumors that this may have been, which may have come from the leak that happened with Capcom, of the possibility that the Switch could be getting an actual brand new Resident Evil game. Although, assuming if this rumor is true, it doesn't sound like it's going to be Resident Evil Village or Resident Evil 8 or anything like that. But before we get started, though, I do want to do, which is basically the quick My 2 Cent. Basically, these are stories that kind of caught my attention, but not going into a huge amount of details. And as always, if you're interested in the story that I'm talking about or where I get my information, I'll have a link down in the description down below. You can check out the links of where I found some of these stories. The first one is that we basically heard is that as of right now, Capcom doesn't have any plans to bring over the original Monster Hunter that was released back on the Nintendo 3DS though, even though we're getting Monster Hunter 2 and all that stuff, which is kind of interesting since I believe Monster Hunter Generation, which was a 3DS game, made its way over to the Nintendo Switch. So I'm a little curious to see why they are not going to bring over Monster Hunter stories. But as of right now, the original Monster Hunter stories, there's no plans, at least at this time, for Capcom to bring that over to the Nintendo Switch at the moment. We also learned that the Sonic movie is set to enter production, the sequel to the first one that came out this year. Will start production in March 2021, and it's codename Emerald Hill. Though it's very interesting to see that they're going to start production on this, especially considering we're hearing a lot of movie studios, halt production or take different approaches due to COVID-19 and all that stuff. And with reports of a possibility that things might not return back to normal until 2022, assuming that's correct, it's going to be interesting to see what approach Paramount is going to take with the Sonic movie 2. Are they going to take the approach that WB's doing, which is basically releasing in both theaters and in streaming service? Are you going to do approach that what Disney did with the live action Disney Mulan? And basically, if you want to, you have to pay if you're going to watch it, through the streaming service or anything like that. And I'm curious to see how this movie will do very well. The first one, surprisingly, was actually good. I mean, I was a bit surprised at how well that movie was doing, and hopefully the sequel is well. I mean, I will say that they certainly set the bar with the Sonic movie, and they're really going to have to push really hard to make this one good. And I think there are plenty of ideas they could run with, Shadow the Hedgehog, or to the Chaos Emeralds, but we'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, production will start in March 2021, at least according to this report coming out. We also learned that apparently that with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity coming out, though, which is great, it looks as though Nintendo is not going to go with a certain direction with the franchise, including which from an article from Nintendo Enthusiast, they do not see Hyrule Warriors as a series after Age of Calamity, though, which is a little disappointment. But they also left the door open to the possibility that they could do another entry, which certainly is nice. If they do another entry in the Hyrule Warriors, or at the very least what I like to call the Nintendo themed Warriors games, personally, if they do another Nintendo themed Warriors games, I think Xenoblade Chronicles would be an excellent choice. I think that would be a good pick to make a next Nintendo-themed Warrior games. Although I would be open to an actual sequel to Hyrule Warriors and Fire Emblem Warriors. That would be nice, but I think Xenoblade Chronicles would be the excellent choice, at least in my view, though. We also learn about basically what apparently is some folks have unearthed, which basically was a canceled Super NES game, basically based off the DC comic book hero, the Green Lantern, which is kind of interesting to see. It's kind of interesting for people to find that. I always find that interesting to see these projects that never saw the light of day or anything like that. It's very fascinating indeed. It's worth taking a look at. And of course, we've learned that March 31st, 2021 is basically what many people are calling the doomsday for Mario games, because this is the time that will be the day when Nintendo ends support for Super Mario Bros. 35 and end selling Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which is a limited run, right, at least according to Nintendo. Again, I'm not a big fan of Nintendo taking this kind of approach in any way. I mean, yes, it's their call, but as always, they could change their mind. We saw the situation with Jump Rope Challenge, how that was originally supposed to end, but Nintendo decided, especially after apparently people liked it, they decided that they're going to continue with that. So there's always that possibility, but as of where it stands, though, mark your calendar, March 31st, 2021 is when they're going to end, that would be the end of the Super Mario 35th anniversary. So if you haven't picked up Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and if you're looking to get the game, I would say this will be a good time to get it. And of course, if you basically haven't tried out Super Mario Bros. 35, this probably would be a good time to try it out. Okay, with the quick My 2 cent part now out of the way, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with Ubisoft, particularly with the whole situation with Watch Dogs Legions. Now, Watch Dogs, I feel, is a series that really, in my view, hasn't really garnered the, well, let's just say, not the kind of attention the way the Assassin's Creed series has to do. I mean, when the first game came out back in 2014, assuming that's when it came out, though, I could be wrong on the date, or wrong on the year, though. This was released at a time when Ubisoft, I think, was at its low point with the whole situation with Assassin's Creed Unity, but Watch Dogs was facing controversy over its visuals when they originally showed off a game that was supposed to be, this is the reason you picked up the PS4 and Xbox One, but when it got visually downgraded, they pulled the gameplay is more important than graphics, which, again, that argument holds, except for the fact that Ubisoft sold that game on the visuals alone, and they got caught, basically, they got called out for that by basically going from one selling point to another when they were selling the game on visuals, and the visuals took a downgrade from what they were originally selling. Watch Dogs 2, on the other hand, certainly got a much better response. From what I understand, it certainly sold well and all that stuff. And now we're going into the next entry in the Watch Dogs series, Watch Dogs Legions. Unfortunately, it seems as though, or most likely on the Xbox Series S and X side, or the Xbox One, it turns out to be there are issues with this. Not to mention Assassin's Creed Valhalla seems to be running into some issues as well. In several articles, though, the first one from from Gamer Rant, it talks about a save issue that has emerged that unfortunately will not be fixed until December. It reads that, quote, Watch Dogs Legion has been available on Xbox One for a month, and the game has since been released on both Xbox Series X and S. It should probably be expected that most major issues with Watch Dogs Legions would have been corrected by now. That appears not to be the case, however, as Ubisoft recently confirmed an existing bug that is keeping the game from properly saving for extended period of times. The official Watch Dogs Twitter account confirmed that the bug in a replay recently saying that the Watch Dogs Legion development team is aware of an issue keeping the game from saving at times. The account that Ubisoft replies to said they've lost around an hour of progress due to the bug. This isn't an issue experienced by just one Watch Dogs Legion's player, however, as it's a common topic of the game subreddit, with some users saying they've been waiting for a fix since the Xbox One launch, though. Ubisoft has responded by saying that, quote, to this person, we're sorry about the issue you experienced. The team is aware of this issue and are working on a fix for it, which we're aiming to have a patch in early December. The article also basically says that, quote, the problem appears only affected Xbox platforms, so PlayStation users on PS4 and PS5 don't have to worry about the issue. The details leading to some questions whether Ubisoft had prioritized optimizing PlayStation platform over Xbox. Having to wait over a month for a serious bug to be fixed certainly may not be the most encouraging sign for Xbox fans. For the time being, Watch Dogs Legion players on Xbox platform should do their best to ensure a save has been registered before quitting their game. If that's too frustrating to deal with, the patch should arrive in early December, though. So it's a little, that's not great in any way. And the fact that we're hearing reports that in fact, assuming this report is correct, that it only seems to affect the Xbox version to be exact, it does kind of raise the question, although I don't know 100% if this is true or not, but it does raise the question of whether or not Ubisoft prioritized the PlayStation version over the Xbox version. It kind of sounds similar to what we saw with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night when it came out last year, where they prioritize the other version and treat the Switch version after an afterthought, only to kind of realize, oh dear, people are actually playing the Switch version, when the Switch version actually sold very well for them, and they realize, oh shit, we may have to actually prioritize the Switch version and actually do something about it, though. So it's a little bit unfortunate, though. On top of that, we're also learning that other issues of bugs, oh, where is it? There. Okay, there we go, have emerged to the point that the game is busted, though, that Ubisoft is not only fixing it, but going to delay the online mode. And from an article from Destructoid, it says, quote, Ubisoft is fixing the issue with single player while putting multiplayer on the back burner. The 4-player cooperative mode with new missions, dynamic events, and challenging tactical optic missions is no longer arriving on December 3rd. Ubisoft has pushed it back to early 2021 while sorting out all the problems Watch Dogs Legion's launch with. As for the existing problems, there's a patch coming this week that will address a lot of the major stability issues. They point out the list. They said Watch Dogs Legions will eventually get fixed. These gigantic AAA games rarely stay busted, but everyone knows it's pretty unacceptable right now. If you already own Watch Dogs Legions, no one blames you from Brexiting off to another game while Ubisoft puts out all the fire. Pretty amazing that they even launched it at this state, especially after they claim that they learned their lesson with the whole Tom Clancy Ghost Recon Breakpoint, how that game was broken and unplayable, broken to the point that they had to delay a lot of games, including Watch Dogs Legions and Immortal Phoenix Rising. And it's seen how Watch Dogs Legions was launched in terms of this state, though. It does make you kind of worry, could we see something with Immortal Phoenix Rising? I mean, having played the demo on Stadia and all, the game shows promise, that's for certain, but Ubisoft's history, we've seen this with games like Assassin's Creed Unity, to now with Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and now with Watch Dogs Legion. It raises some concerns with especially their next upcoming title, Immortal Phoenix Rising. Hopefully this game will get fixed soon, but the fact that they launched it in this state is truly unacceptable indeed. One last thing to point out, though, is that apparently it seems there is a update for basically Assassin's Creed Valhalla for the Xbox Series S and X, and this also is options also available for the PS5. The new option is a graphics and performance mode, which is nice, which basically you choose performance, allow the game to adopt the resolution and graphics setting to maintain 60 frames per second. Choose quality, enables the game to launch and run maximum resolution graphics setting while maintaining a 30 FPS though. It also talks about stability. They also fixing the save issue and all that stuff, and they talk about how it's already up already. They said originally when this article was written, it was at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, November 26th, and the size of it is 5 gigabytes. So great that they are addressing some of the issues with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but still, this should have been addressed earlier. So overall, like I said, Watch Dogs Legions eventually is going to get fixed, but right now, I can't see any reason to pick it up, especially when we're hearing issues of bugs and glitches and all that stuff. And there's a reason why a lot of people are a little bit uncomfortable in terms of buying AAA games when we see these kind of problems and all that stuff, though. It's why you see a lot of people like the niche and indies and all that stuff. Again, the game will probably be fixed, but it should not have been released in the state that it was right now, especially when they claim they've learned their lesson after what happened with Tom Clancy Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2. And this one has to do with Square Enix announcing the sequel to The World Ends With You. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our video, of our My 2 Cent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Square Enix, particularly the announcement regarding The World Ends With You, which I believe in Japan it's called It's a Wonderful World. We're getting an announcement of not only the anime, but an actual sequel to this game. Now, the original one was released back during the Nintendo DS era, and it was I would say more like a hidden gem in a way, more like a niche title to be exact, as the game really took use of both the screens on the Nintendo DS and the touchscreen to be exact. And it was definitely a fun title, but it never reached the audience, never gained the audience it would have gotten or anything like that. And of course the game was also ported to the Nintendo Switch, but not with great results, though, and one of the big criticisms about that was the controls. And to me, I tried to enjoy the game on the Nintendo Switch, but it was horrible. The idea of trying to recreate the touchscreen feature like it was on the Nintendo DS, and of course the game being released on Android and ISO devices, just didn't work on the Nintendo Switch. Now, maybe they updated it and improved some of the controls, maybe they haven't, but when the game was ported to the Switch and it came out, the controls were just horrible, and it also made me concerned about the possibility of whether or not an actual sequel was going to happen. Well, last week there was a countdown that Square Enix did in terms of regarding information regarding The World Ends With You, and apparently we had two announcements came out here. A anime based on The World Ends With You and, excuse me, an actual sequel, though. In two articles from Nintendo Life, the first one talks about the anime which is basically a retelling of the first The World Ends With You that is going to air in April 2021 in Japan, though, and they just released a new trailer, but they also said that there's international release are planned for 2021. The article reads, quote, Square Enix shared a brand new trailer for the upcoming anime inspired by the Nintendo DS JRPG The World Ends With You. The trailer showed off some of the scenes you expect to see in the final product before confirming for an April 2021 release window in Japan. An international release is expected in 2021, although no date for a Western launch has been confirmed just yet, though, and they showed the video and all that stuff, and judging by the video that it showed, as I said before, it's going to be based off the first game, though, that was originally released on the Nintendo DS. It's nice that the series is getting some love and all that stuff. I'm looking forward to when it comes out. I'm looking forward to this anime when it comes out to the West, though. It'll be interesting to see how long we have to wait for it, and whether or not we'll see it on any of the streaming service, whether it's on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Instant Video, or even on, say, like Crunchyroll or Funimation. So I'm curious to see if it will come to streaming service or not. So, but either way, they're doing an anime based off the first World Ends With You, and I'm looking forward to it when it finally gets released outside of Japan, although, as it says, Japan will be getting it first in April 2021. But the big announcement, I think, was an actual sequel to the game is in development, titled, quote, Neo, The World Ends With You, though. The article reads that, quote, Square Enix has announced a sequel to the Nintendo DS classic, The World Ends With You. Title, Neo, The World Ends With You. The game will launch on both the Nintendo Switch and PS4 in summer 2021. I assume that's when they'll bring, my guess is that's when the anime will come over and all, but I could be wrong or anything like that. Anyway, continuing on. The release window was revealed alongside debut gameplay footage in the announcement trailer for the title. The game follows The World Ends With You Final Remix, an enhanced port of the original game which launched on the Switch back in 2018. Earlier today, the publisher also announced that the upcoming anime based on the series will be airing in Japan starting April 2021, though. And judging by the gameplay trailer that was officially revealed, obviously it's taking a 3D approach and all that stuff. That certainly is nice, and the combat seems to follow somewhat similar to what the original Nintendo DS is. I'm curious to see how that's going to play out on the Nintendo Switch, especially when you're using, like buttons and all that stuff. So I'm very curious how it's going to work and all that stuff. But I am very happy that they are bringing this series back, and I'm very happy that they're doing an actual sequel, much like how we saw Trials of Mana released last year, a game that no one thought would be coming over to the West, but they brought it over and actually did an updated version of the original one released on the Famicom and all for the Switch and the PS4 and all that. And I think also PC. I'm not sure about Xbox, but either way, it's very nice that they are bringing this. That this is getting another entry into the series. So overall, I'm very happy that World Ends With You is getting a sequel. The Switch version of the first game was not exactly great due to the controls, so I'm hoping this time around with the sequel, it will play well and all that stuff. And I'm very curious to see what direction they go with the sequel, and whether any of the characters from the first game makes an appearance in the sequel in some ways or in some forms and all that stuff. So great that we're getting an actual sequel. Maybe this will encourage Square Enix to take a look at other IPs that lay dormant. Parasite Eve is a good example. And of course, I'm also waiting patiently for when Bravely Default 2 finally gets an official release date. Hopefully, I believe it did, and hopefully I'm looking forward to picking up that game when that comes out. But like I said, glad that The World Ends With You is getting a sequel and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3. And this one has to do with a report that apparently, with Nintendo and Nvidia, particularly Nvidia being happy with the way the Switch is going at this time. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at both Nvidia and Nintendo, and a recent comment made by Nvidia. Now, one of the most interesting things that came out when the Nintendo Switch was originally revealed back in 2016 was the fact that Nvidia, a company that's developed different kinds of graphical chips and all that stuff, especially the graphics card, like the GTX. I mean, again, I'm not a PC person, but most PC gamers have heard, I think majority of PC gamers have heard of Nvidia and all that. Was the one supplying the chip for the Nintendo Switch, particularly using a second generation Maxwell, part of the Tegra X1 series. And since the Switch has came out and all that stuff, the Switch has been extremely successful and all that stuff. It continues to sell very well. Last time I've heard, it sold like 68 million units sold worldwide. And obviously, not only is Nintendo happy, but also Nvidia is happy as well. Nvidia's also launched their own cloud gaming streaming service by the name of Nvidia's GeForce Now. So recently, some comments made by Nvidia certainly shows that they are very pleased with the way things are going right now. In an article from Nintendo Enthusiast, if I can get it out, it reads that, quote, "You probably heard a thing or two about how well Nintendo Switch has been selling this year. A global pandemic has forced people inside, with many turning to gaming as an entertainment source. This trend is extremely beneficial to gaming hardware and software companies, with Nintendo reporting very positive fiscal results. However, it isn't just Nintendo benefiting from the Switch specifically. Nvidia is making banks as well. Nvidia is the manufacturers behind the internal chipset used for the Switch system. Basically, a lot of Nvidia's tech powers the console. As a result, the incredible high hardware sales for Switch right now are certainly pleasing Nvidia, as the manufacturer mentions the Switch in a recent earning call. The CFO of Nvidia says, we also have record gaming console revenues on strong demands for the Nintendo Switch. In the conference, in regards to other platforms, the company spoke about GeForce Now, its cloud streaming service. However, the company doesn't have its hands anywhere else in the major console pie. As present, rival company AMD manufactured the chipset in all the recent and upcoming PlayStation and Xbox systems. It's worth pointing out that supposedly Nvidia has a partnership with Nintendo that supposedly lasts for 2 decades and all that stuff. They also recently made comments about basically other devices, as they mentioned, quote, about Nvidia planning to release more devices in the near future for GeForce Now, saying 750 games are currently available on GeForce Now, the most of any cloud gaming platform, including 75 free-to-play games, with more games added every Thursday. GeForce Now supports many popular clients, including PC, Macs, and Chromebook. Stay tuned for more devices to come in the near future. So it's possible GeForce Now could make its way onto other platforms out there. Whether it makes its way to the Switch or not, who knows? But it seems as though Nvidia and Nintendo partnership is definitely paying off for them and all, and it's certainly Nvidia's happy that they're making money, and Nintendo's happy that they're making money. And it'll be interesting to see how far this partnership goes. Perhaps maybe extends upon the partnership they have right now, which supposedly lasts for 2 decades. Maybe Nintendo's asking Nvidia, saying, hey, the Switch has been a success. Let's see if we can go for something maybe a little bit more powerful than the current chipset that we have right now for the Nintendo Switch. I mean, after all, there are rumors about a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro, ranging from being more powerful, maybe more powerful or as close to being as powerful as the base PS4 or Xbox One, to reports that Nintendo is asking developers to have their games 4K ready, considering that the Switch could use, or the next Switch could use, DLSS technology that Nvidia has. So it seems as though, whatever the case may be, it doesn't seem this partnership is going away anytime soon, and obviously Nintendo and Nvidia are pretty happy as where things stand right now. So overall, great that Nvidia and Nintendo are happy with the way the things are right now. Obviously, they are very pleased given how well the Nintendo Switch is doing at this time. Though, as I said this before, it would be very interesting to see where the Switch stands now that the Xbox Series S and X and the PS5 are out in the market, even though they are currently right now hard to find. It'll be interesting to see if Nintendo and Nvidia can maintain that momentum for the Nintendo Switch. But as of right now, obviously Nintendo and Nvidia are very, very happy where things are standing at this moment. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 4. And this one has to do with a campaign called Save Smash, as this one has to do with the whole situation where Nintendo has responded to basically ordering cease and desist or legal action, shall we say, in regards of Smash Bros. Melee, and that certainly is not sitting well with the Smash community, to be exact. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 4 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at a situation called Save Smash, and this one has to do with the whole situation involving Super Smash Bros. Melee, though. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really a big Super Smash Bros. Fan or anything like that. The series never really interests me because I'm not in the whole competitive fighting games or anything like that. But there's no denying that the series has its audience, and there are plenty of people who like it, particularly Melee, because to them it's considered like one of the best entries into the Super Smash Bros. Series, though. But, of course, at the same time, Nintendo is also known for its history of being very protective of their IPs. Sometimes I think Nintendo is in the right on this, but there are times when I think Nintendo can go maybe a little bit overboard at times in certain situations. And this one, well, I would say they are both in the right, and yet at the same time, I also think they are, in a way, a little bit overboard, though. This all has to do with a situation, basically, of a tournament house hosting the event, but using a way to sort of use it, have some Melee online, using a sort of a mod or anything like that, and that, unfortunately, did not sit very well with Nintendo itself. In an article, let me see if I can get it out. An article first on Nintendo Life, the first thing to point out is that they updated it by pointing out that the hashtag originally started out as free Melee to Save Smash, and there have been people who have posted comments about it, basically saying that the whole hashtag Save Smash is rallying around to try to get the annual Big House tournament reinstated after Nintendo issued a cease and desist demand due to the use of SLIPPI, a software tool which makes Melee playable online. Some people have responded, including some posted on Twitter saying, quote, "Nintendo, please wake up. Is there actually a good reason for you to say no to all the opportunities you have with Smash? I legit try to think about every reason that I just can't come up with a justifiable one. Please realize how much you could grow. Hashtag Save Smash." Anyway, the story goes that, quote, "The competitive Smash Brother community has taken action online this year, but one event hasn't been so lucky. The Big House, the longest running major Smash tournament in the US, has received a cease and desist order from Nintendo of America. The issue Nintendo has with this year's event is the fact it requires illegally copy version of Super Smash Bros. Melee, and will also make use of the SIPPI, SLIPPI online, roadblock netcode allowing players to duke it out online. In a statement to Polygon, Nintendo said the tournament organizers refused to cooperate, so it was left with no choice but to step to protect its intellectual property and brand. Noticeably, the company said it will continue to support the Smash Bros. Competitive scene in the future. Nintendo's response to this was, quote, Nintendo appreciates the love and dedication the fighting game community has for Super Smash Bros. Series. We have partnered with numerous Super Smash Bros. Tournaments in the past and have hosted our own online and offline tournament for the game, and we plan to continue that support in the future. Unfortunately, the upcoming Big House tournament announced plan to host an online tournament for Super Smash Bros. Melee that requires the use of illegal copy versions of the game in conjunction with a mod called SLI during their online event. Nintendo therefore contacted the tournament organizers to ask them to stop. They refused, leaving Nintendo with no choice but to step in to protect its intellectual property and brand. Nintendo cannot condone or allow piracy of its intellectual property. In their own response via Twitter, the Big House said it was heartbroken it had to cancel the online event and has no choice but to comply with Nintendo. It will send out more details about the refund soon. The Big House responded by saying, quote, the Big House is heartbroken to share that we received a cease and desist from Nintendo of America Incorporation to cancel our upcoming online event. We were informed that we do not have permission to host or broadcast the event primarily due to the use of SLI. Sadly, all our competitors are affected. We were forced to comply with the order and cancel the Big House online for both Melee and Ultimate. Refund information will be sent shortly. We apologize for all those impacted. The Smash and competitive fighting gaming community has responded with the hashtag #FreeMelee, which is trending on social media. The Big House Smash Brothers competition was scheduled to take place between the 4th and the 6th of December, though. And from Screen Rant, one of their writers wrote an interesting point. It's saying, quote, Nintendo has every legal right to step in and issue a cease and desist order as Super Smash Bros. Melee in its intellectual property. However, that doesn't mean Nintendo's decision to do so was the right call. Super Smash Bros. Melee was released 19 years ago and has since received little to no attention from Nintendo outside of digital ports to the Wii and Wii U. Nintendo has also never hinted a release version of Melee that supports online battle. Instead, Nintendo forced players to play newer Super Smash titles, regardless of Melee being the favorite title in competitive format. Gamers could assume that of all the years allowing an online competitive Melee tournament, Nintendo would allow the usage of SLI given the circumstances. This is the largest Super Smash Bros. Tournament of the year at the end of one of the most difficult years in recent history thanks to COVID-19. A worldwide pandemic is forcing a countless numbers of players to stay indoors for extended period of time, and Nintendo is concerned that competitors might pirate a nearly 20-year-old game. For all the good that Nintendo can create, it can really make a decision that are extremely out of touch with the gaming community. So I have to say, when you look at it though, Nintendo's both kind of right and wrong on this though. Yes, this is their intellectual property and they have a right to protect their intellectual property, as we've seen cases where some people have tried to pirate their games and all that stuff and have shut down folks who have tried to. We've even seen them gone after, the whole situation with rapper Soulja Boy, and the whole Soldier console, which had some of their IPs in that console without their permission, although we learned that Soulja Boy also basically used a Chinese knockoff console to pass it off as his own, to be exact. So there are some cases where I do think Nintendo is in the right. However, I could see some of the argument some of the argument against this, especially considering that we're in a pandemic situation with COVID-19. Not all the competitors are able to meet with each other. So having an offline mode would be extremely difficult. In fact, the last thing these competitors who host this event, last thing they want to do is to learn that this turns into like a super spreader with COVID-19. So I will say at the same time, I do think Nintendo should be a little bit more lenient though. Maybe work something out with this tournament house to see how they could get Melee to work online without having to worry about their intellectual property and all that stuff. So I will say it's a very unfortunate situation, especially given the tough times that we're facing right now. So overall, I have to say Nintendo is both in the right and the wrong with this. Yes, they're in the right to protect their IP, but at the same time, I think they should be a little bit more lenient in some areas, though, especially with COVID-19, they're not going to be able to hold a Melee competition offline. So I really think they should at least rethink it. But at the same time, you could argue that this tournament, the people who are hosting this tournament could have gone with something like, say, Smash Brothers Ultimate, which also has an online. Although many have debates about Nintendo Switch Online in general, to be exact. But yeah, like I said, I think that Nintendo can be in the right on this, but at the same time, they can also be in the wrong on this as well. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to our fifth and final part, and this one has to do with rumors that a Resident Evil game could be coming to the Nintendo Switch, and it's possible it could be Resident Evil Revelation 3. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fifth and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one we're going to be taking a look at Resident Evil, particularly some stories that are coming out about the possibility that a Resident Evil Revelations 3 could be coming to the Nintendo Switch. Now before I begin talking about the story, I do want to stress and point out that this is a rumor at all. There has been no official confirmation at this time, and no one knows if the story is true or not, so take the story with a grain of salt. That being said, the person who is talking about this rumor, supposedly this Capcom insider, has a history of getting things right. In fact, this was the same person who got right about the story about a Monster Hunter game, or a brand new Monster Hunter game coming to the Nintendo Switch, which later turned out to be true, which in the end turned out to be Monster Hunter Rise, and not to mention we learned that that game is running on the Resident Evil engine. Nevertheless, a grain of salt needs to be taken. So as far as Resident Evil go, since Resident Evil 7 has come out, the series has sort of seen, in my view, sort of a resurgent though. After 5 and 6 was not that great, 6 being considered by many to be the worst entry, although in my personal opinion I thought 6 was a little bit better than 5 was, to be exact though. The series has like I said, has sort of seen a comeback. We saw basically in 2019 the release of Resident Evil 2, a remake, or actually a remake of Resident Evil 2, and this year we saw Resident Evil 3 get the remake treatment, and of course we learned that the next entry in the Resident Evil series, titled Resident Evil Village or Resident Evil 8. Not to mention, we've heard stories how Resident Evil Village originally was supposed to be Resident Evil Revelation 3. Well, now a new rumor has sort of popped up that points to the fact that Nintendo fans may have to look for, or possibly looking forward to another entry in the Resident Evil series, and this time, this one could be coming to the Nintendo Switch. In an article from Nintendo Life, it reads that Capcom, as you might recall, suffered a massive leak not long ago. It seemed confirmingly a number of projects are on the way, including a game called Resident Evil Outbreak, which is scheduled for fourth quarter 2021. According to well-known Capcom insider Dust Goldman, who has made a number of accurate predictions in recent time, this game is actually Resident Evil Revelations 3, even if it doesn't go by this name. And perhaps more interesting, it will be a Switch-focused Resident Evil game with the hybrid system being the lead platform. This is what the person said on Reset Era, RESSETERA. Quote, I sort of weighed this option. I think long-term people believe there is an Outbreak 3 and it's not existing may hurt more than help, but I also got 100% confirmation Outrage is Resident Evil Switch. It may not be called Revelation 3 when it's released, but for all intents and purpose, and it's a Switch-focused Resident Evil game. Not Switch exclusive, though it comes to everything. Switch was the lead platform, though. I know you know this. Just decide and think it's coming out to the public anyway. Earlier this year, in August, Dusk Goldman said Capcom would release a new Monster Hunter game on the Switch soon, and that it will be running on a Switch-compatible version of the Resident Evil engine instead of the company's old MT Framework engine. Later on in September, Capcom announced Monster Hunter Rise, running on its Resident Evil engine, would be arriving exclusively on the Nintendo Switch in March next year. So, given this person, even though this is a rumor, given this person's background and given their history of getting some of their predictions correct, I will say it does sound like this may be true. Now, whether or not it's called Resident Evil Revelation 3 or if it's called Resident Evil Outrage, that remains to be seen. But I definitely like the fact that it's coming to the Nintendo Switch. My hope, assuming if this is true, is maybe they could incorporate elements that were in the Resident Evil 7 to the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, and maybe some elements from Resident Evil Village or 8, if that happens. I mean, I don't expect that Resident Evil Village is going to come to the Nintendo Switch, although given the fact that the Switch now could run the Resident Evil engine, there's always that possibility. But Revelation 3 is certainly nice, and it'll be curious to see who the characters will be in this game. Perhaps maybe we finally get one where we actually play one of the, what many view as the best sub-character out there, Hulk. I mean, maybe we'll get to play him, if I'm saying his name correctly, or maybe we'll introduce new cast of characters. Maybe we play as, Rebecca from like the original Resident Evil, or Billy from Resident Evil 0, or it could be someone brand new, to be exact. So we'll have to wait and see, assuming if this rumor turns out to be true, but my hope it is, and my hope is that hopefully this one is actually good. So overall, though, very interesting rumor about this one. We don't know if it's true or not, but given this leaker's history, given their history of getting some of their Capcom information correct, I'm leaning a little bit towards this one being true. But like as always, though, I want to wait and hear official confirmation, though. So until then, I would say take this information with a grain of salt at this time. Okay, this concludes this quick My 2 Cent, or should I say, this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts with the situation with Watch Dogs Legion, though, particularly with the Xbox version, though? Do you think this is unacceptable for Ubisoft to release a game in this kind of condition, though? Do you think it's possible they prioritize the PS4 and PS5 version over the Xbox or Xbox One or Xbox Series S and X in any way? What are your thoughts about the 2 announcements regarding The World Ends With You? Are you looking forward to the anime when it comes out sometime in 2021? Are you glad they actually are doing a real sequel to The World Ends With You titled Neo The World Ends With You? And do you think Square Enix should dig up some other IPs that they may have not, that have been dormant for some time, like maybe say Parasite Eve to be exact? What are your thoughts about this, with Nvidia being happy with the way things are going with the Nintendo Switch, though? Do you think this is opening the door to maybe seeing the partnership last longer? Do you think that Nvidia will try to convince Nintendo to maybe, with the Switch 2 or the Switch Pro, to maybe use a more powerful chip from the chipsets that they have? What are your thoughts about the whole situation with the term #SaveSmash and all that stuff? Do you think Nintendo was in the right in terms of issuing this cease and desist over this use of this mod to play Melee online? Or do you think maybe they went a little bit overboard with this, especially considering that Melee can only be played offline, and given the whole situation with COVID-19, maybe they should at least cut some slack in some areas? Or do you think, like I said, do you think they're in the right though? And last but not least, what do you think about this rumor about a Resident Evil game coming to the Nintendo Switch, or being Switch focused first? Do you think this is going to be Resident Evil Revelations 3? Do you think it's going to be a different name? Are you glad that it's a Switch focus though? Or do you think this game should have been maybe a Switch exclusive? Or do you really don't care either way? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that will be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day, and of course, happy holidays then. Bye!